The appearance of the three Spider-Man in Spider-Man No Way Home not only won the hearts of fans, but also helped the movie broke records, grossing nearly $2 billion. But then, DC steps in, trying to replicate the success with The Flash, bringing not just one, but three Batmans. However, instead of an explosion of success, the film barely managed to reach $270 million at the box office. What happened? Why did the formula work for Marvel, but fail for DC? There are several reasons why this happened, and one of the biggest is the generational gap between the different versions of Batman and the audiences they appeal to. The Batman characters in The Flash, Michael Keaton, Ben Affleck, and George Clooney, are all significant in their own right. Well, not Clooney though, but their impact depends largely on when the audience grew up. The superhero genre has always been aimed at a younger audience, primarily teens and young adults. Today, both Gen Z and millennials make up the majority of superhero moviegoers, with Gen Z, those born between 1997 and 2012, becoming increasingly dominant in recent years. This means that most people going to theaters today to watch superhero movies weren't even born when Keaton's and Clooney's Batman films were released. Keaton's Batman movies came out in 1989 and 1992, while Clooney's was released in 1997. This alone drastically reduces the chances of Gen Z growing up with these versions of Batman. It was like if Marvel, instead of bringing back Tobey Maguire, had brought back Nicholas Hammond. And if you're wondering who Nicholas Hammond is, that just proves the point. But I'll tell you who he is. He portrayed Spider-Man in The Amazing Spider-Man in the late 70s, one of the first live-action adaptations of the character. Now, tell me, would you buy a ticket to see No Way Home based on the fact that you were going to see Nicholas Hammond's Spider-Man? Probably not, right? To add to that, Batman movies continue to be released as Gen Z grew up, most notably Christian Bale's Dark Knight trilogy in 2005, 2008, and 2012. As a result, the first Batman many of them were introduced to wasn't Keaton or Clooney, making those versions feel more distant from their generation. They don't hold the same emotional weight or nostalgia for Gen Z. On top of that, Clooney's Batman is widely associated with Batman and Robin, one of the most critically panned superhero movies of all time. So not only is he too outdated to resonate with the new generation, but he probably didn't even manage to leave a lasting impact on the fans of his own era. And his return doesn't offer much to the story beyond an ironic twist. Ben Affleck's Batman, on the other hand, does appeal to a more modern audience, particularly those who followed the DCEU from the beginning. However, his version of the character has been highly divisive. Fans either love or hate his take on the Caped Crusader. This polarization creates an emotional disconnect. So while Affleck's Batman is familiar to today's audiences, he isn't universally beloved. The lack of a strong emotional connection made their appearances feel more like a novelty than a meaningful crossover event. And this is exactly why Spider-Man No Way Home succeeded. The three Spider-Men, Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield, and Tom Holland, are all deeply beloved by their respective fan bases. Importantly, their fan bases are much younger than those of Keaton and Clooney. It's worth noting that Tobey Maguire's last Spider-Man movie came out in 2007, not the 80s or 90s. Those who grew up in the early 2000s still look back fondly on his trilogy. For many, he is still the prototype of Spider-Man, much like how Keaton's Batman was until Christian Bale's version came along. Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man came even more recently, with his two movies releasing in 2012 and 2014. And while his version wasn't as universally adored at the time, he has since gained a passionate fan base that appreciates his modern and emotionally complex take on Peter Parker. No Way Home was so effective because all three Spider-Men represented different parts of the audience's experience with the character. They weren't just playing Spider-Man, they were embodying versions that resonated across generations. And despite coming from different eras, the audience grew up with all three. So, basically, The Flash struggled because its Batman lacked the same level of emotional resonance. I mean, why not bring in Christian Bale's Batman? I get that including Robert Pattinson might have been something they wanted to avoid, despite him being the most relevant Batman when The Flash was released, to prevent confusion about whether he was part of the DCU. But Bale's Batman is more recent than even Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man, and he's arguably the best and most popular live-action Batman of all time. Bringing Bale's Batman would have certainly added more impact to the movie, but still, it wouldn't have single-handedly fixed all the issues with these three Batman cameos, because the generational gap is just one part of the problem. Another major issue is that the three Batmen never actually interacted with each other throughout the entire movie. Spider-Man No Way Home isn't just a film about three Spider-Men appearing in the same universe. It's about the emotional growth and challenges of each version of Peter Parker. When Maguire and Garfield's versions of Spider-Man enter the picture, they aren't just fan service cameos. They play vital roles in Peter's emotional development. The scene where the three Peter Parkers share their pain and loss provides an emotional depth that resonates far beyond just the spectacle of having them appear together. Tom Holland's Peter Parker deciding to erase everyone's memory of him to keep his loved ones safe is the culmination of everything the three Spider-Men have shared and everything Peter has learned from them. While each Batman carries its own emotional weight for fans who grew up with them, The Flash doesn't take the time to explore those emotions in a deep or meaningful way. Keaton's Batman is brought back for nostalgia, but his return doesn't delve into the complexities of his character from the original films. He feels like a shadow of the Batman he once was. His return comes across as a cameo for fans of the Burton films rather than an essential part of Barry Allen's story. The Batmen don't contribute significantly to Barry's emotional arc. They don't challenge him in ways that lead to personal growth. There's no real exploration of the different emotional journeys these Batmen have gone through. I mean, Affleck's Batman has a brief moment where he tries to give Barry advice about time travel, but that lasts only a few seconds. We never see him again after that. And the worst part was not seeing the three of them share the screen. We were not even close to experience seeing the three different Batmen fighting together. That would have definitely been a dream come true, just like it was with the three Spider-Men. So as a result, their appearances feel more like a forced attempt to create a multiverse spectacle than a well-constructed emotional payoff. Another big mistake The Flash made was not including other versions of the character. I mean, the name of the movie is The Flash, right? The Flash TV series, starring Grant Gustin, has a massive fan base that deeply connects with his version of the character, along with other versions introduced in the show, like John Wesley Shipp's Flash. Imagine a scene where Barry Allen meets an alternate universe version of himself, someone like Grant Gustin's Flash. Actually, you don't have to imagine it, because this already happened in the CW series. And when it did, the Flash fans went absolutely crazy online. That moment confirmed they were part of the same universe. For people like me, who deeply loved Grant Gustin's version, it was a dream come true. It meant that the possibility of Gustin's Flash appearing in a DC movie was real. This would have been a fantastic way to bridge the worlds of film and television, creating a truly special and unforgettable moment for us. I saw so many people speculating about his possible appearance in the movie, and when the movie came out, the disappointment was real. They didn't give us what we wanted, unlike Marvel and Sony with No Way Home. The hype was there, but they didn't capitalize on it. Even Kid Flash could have had a bigger impact on fans and the story than George Clooney's Batman. It was a movie about the Flash, not Batman. So why bring in three Batmen instead of three Flashes? But since the Flash's idea was to bring in three Batmen, there was something else they could have done to make their presence more impactful and surprising. And that, too, failed miserably: the movie's marketing. Marvel was extremely skillful in how it handled the marketing for Spider-Man: No Way Home. They showed us Tobey's and Andrew's villains in the trailers, but there was no sign of their Spider-Man. The company kept the return of Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man a secret, creating suspense that led us all to speculate and analyze every clue revealed in trailers and promotional material. The campaign was carefully planned to engage us without revealing everything at once. While everyone was expecting to see them in the movie, there was still that uncertainty surrounding it. This wasn't the first time Marvel played with us. Remember in Far From Home, when Mysterio hinted at the multiverse? Or when Hulk appeared in the Infinity War trailer, ready to fight? Not to mention those Andrew Garfield interviews. I mean, the more he said he wasn't in the movie, the more we believed he was going to be in it. So when the movie dropped, it was an epic moment. We were already prepared for the surprise, but the impact was still massive because we would only believe it was real if we saw it happen with our own eyes. On the other hand, The Flash's marketing failed by revealing long before the movie's release that characters like Keaton's and Affleck's Batman would be in film. The only one they didn't reveal was the one no one cared about, and the one that had no impact on the plot. By showcasing these special appearances early on, the movie lost the element of surprise, an essential component for a crossover to have maximum impact. Instead of building suspense to heighten audience excitement, The Flash's marketing revealed too many key moments beforehand, ultimately diminishing their impact. It's similar to what happened with Captain America: Brave New World. A lot of people were disappointed that Red Hulk was shown in the trailers, because when you actually watch the movie, you realize his appearance was meant to be a surprise. But I guess, just like Brave New World, without Keaton and Affleck's Batman in the trailers, the general interest in seeing The Flash in theaters would have been even lower. And I don't even want to get into all the issues surrounding Ezra Miller, because while that definitely influenced the movie's success, it's not directly connected to the problems with the three Batmen. And since this video is about that specific issue, I'm sticking to that. And probably the most important reason why this crossover didn't have the same impact as the three Spider-Men in No Way Home is that DC had already announced this universe was ending before The Flash was even released. The Flash, despite its ambitious premise and nostalgic return of multiple Batmen, was ultimately released at a time when fans already knew the Snyderverse was ending. That alone diminished any sense of investment and made the film's impact feel much weaker. By the time The Flash hit theaters, it was no secret that Aquaman 2 will be the last film of the DCU before James Gunn's reboot. That knowledge erased any sense of urgency or importance. Why should we care about a universe that was about to be wiped away? Many DC fans didn't even bother watching the movie because of that. This made the three Batmen feel irrelevant. If this universe was ending, why should we care about them at all? It doesn't matter they are part of the same universe, right? Because this universe will end. Instead of setting up an exciting new direction for the DC universe, it only confused us. The Flash didn't leave fans buzzing with excitement for the future. It left them with a shrug. I mean, there was literally no future for this franchise, so what else is there to say? So in conclusion, the problem with the three Batmen is the same issue that caused the failure of the DCU. They tried to copy Marvel's strategy. But the problem is that Marvel was always operating on a different timeline than DC, because they literally started much earlier. That's why DC copying Marvel was never going to work. They rushed Justice League because at that time, Marvel had already successfully released 2 Avengers movies. And what happened? Most of the audience didn't like the film because the characters didn't even have time to develop properly. The 3 Batman situation is the same mistake. Marvel brought back the Spider-Man because it made sense for the story, and the timing was perfect. Tobey and Andrew's Spider-Man were still relatively recent and fresh in the minds of Marvel's target audience. DC tried to do the same thing, but the problem was that they didn't have the right conditions to make it work. In the end, it turned into yet another DC failure. Probably a film that no one will even remember in a few years, while No Way Home made history and will be remembered forever.